Many Christians today believe that this is how Christianity spread. That Christianity spread because of the evangelicals in the first century, second century, third century, fourth century, so on and so forth, until this day. This is how most Christians today perceive their religion, and is spread through some type of, hey, I just came to tell you about the Lord. But that is so far away from the true history of Christianity. Just because this is the primary way that Christianity is spread today, and where the majority of the world are democratic, where the majority of the world have their own standing armies, where the majority of the world tries to play nice to a certain degree with each other, that was not the world 2,000 years ago. No, sir. No, ma'am. This was the world 2,000 years ago. This was the world 1,000 years ago. This was the world 500 years ago. This was the world 300 years ago. The world didn't stop being this until the late 18th century, or the late 19th century, sorry. And so we're talking about the late 1800s is when the world stopped doing this for the most part, and have come into the mindset that we have today. So let me tell you how your Christianity spread, and if it, how your song go, if it had not been for the army of the Romans, then you would not have Christianity in the numbers that you have today. You would not have the nations that are predominantly Christian as you do today. Same thing goes for Islam. Same thing goes for Islam. So we're running both of them right now. Now, when you start from the advent of Christianity in the late first century, in the late first century, Christianity spread, initially it spread by people who just believed in this story. And those people were persecuted by the Roman government. That part is true. But as we move into the second century and into the third century, that persecution becomes less and less because the religion is not going away. And you're finding Christians are fighting amongst Christians as well, and literally fighting like this as to who are the true followers of this story of the character Yeshua of the Bible. And you don't even have a Bible at this time frame. What you have are different people reading different works. For instance, one of the early church fathers who is credited with spreading a lot of Christianity was Irenaeus. Irenaeus also read and utilized and vindicated the book of Judith. Most people don't know what the book of Judith is, but it is a book that ended up not being canonized, but it just demonstrates how even your earliest church fathers in the second century were reading different collections, and people had different opinions. You had the Gnostics, you had the Marcions, you had many different variations of Christianity in first, second, and third century Christianity. Now, by the time we get to 318, well, really 313, when Constantine is fighting Maxentius to reunify the Roman Empire because it had split, both Maxentius and Constantine had Christians in their army. Romanized Christians were in their army. Maxentius had more Christians than Constantine did, but he had them. So after Constantine wins the battle of the Moldavian Bridge, he then courts the Christian bishops that are in his army. He legalizes Christianity because one of the things he recognized is that since Maxentius had many Christians in his army, and Christian was still, although it was in Rome in the 200s and the 100s, the 200s, the 300s, it was still primarily in the Levant, in North Africa, in Western Europe. Eastern Europe. So it hadn't quite developed into the Roman Empire in the center of the Mediterranean in Italy as well. So in order to keep the peace, he legalized Christianity. Plus, Alexandria, Egypt, which had a large Jewish and Christian population, at the time frame, was very key to trade and military movements to the Roman Empire. So therefore, he had to make sure that area remained peaceful. So in 325, he called for the Nicene Council in order to organize Christianity under the Orthodoxy. Now, once Christianity got that piece of power from the Roman government, and especially from Constantine's mother, they began to grow more and more in power. And then when Emperor Theodosius in 381 became Christian and then called for the entirety of the Roman government, the Roman population, the Roman Empire to become Christian, then Christianity had the backing of the Roman army. And as we continue to move, and the Arab nation comes up and the Ottomans, and they spread through the religion of Allah through warfare and conquered North Africa and began to conquer through the Levant. Well, the Roman Empire began to fight in their crusades to capture the Holy Land, to push back the Ottomans, both fighting and forcing people that they conquer to become Christian or Islamic. And then when we get the Islamic trans-Saharan slave trade, they're pulling people from Sudan, they're pulling people from Egypt, they're pulling people from Mali, they're pulling people all throughout North Africa and a little bit of sub-Saharan Africa, and enslaving them and forcing them to convert over to Islam in the same way that Christians began to force people to become Christian. And then by the time we get to the 1400s, we have popes who are writing edicts. Pope Nicholas, Pope Clement, writing edicts that the Christian countries, Spain, Portugal especially, are to go to other nations. And if they find someone is already a Christian, and this was the issue they had in the Canary Islands, that if they're already Christians, you cannot enslave them. But it is their duty to go into the western coast of Africa and enslave these people and force them to be Christian and enslave them in perpetuity. And then as the New World, the Americas, become known to the Europeans, then it is their duty to come to the Americas and enslave and force these people into Christianity. So Christianity was forced through the Spanish with Cortez. The Islamics didn't really come to the America. Cordoba focused more on India and forced the Indus people to become Muslims, trying to push them away from Hinduism. And we had people like Marco Polo going out trying to make money on the Silk Road, but at the same time, the armies of Prester John and all these other, as a mythological person, were going out and supposedly trying to Christianize the Mongols and then the Huns and all those people, and went to Japan and was getting their head cut off trying to change those people. But when they came to the Americas with Manifest Destiny and all these sorts of things, they forced Christianity. They forced Christianity on all those they enslaved and all those that they conquered. It wasn't anything that was done through just, hey, I know you worship the sky gods, but let me tell you about Jesus. Hey, I know you worship Quetzalcoatl, but let me tell you about Jesus. It's, hey, you worship a fake pagan god, he's the devil, and I'm going to chop off your damn hand and cut your kids up and all these things unless you convert over to my Christianity, because I ain't about that bullshit. That was their belief in their holy divine right. So Christianity was not grown this way. Christianity was increased this way, through violence, through terror, through fear, through warfare, through conquering, through stealing of the land and stealing of people's heritage. That's how Christianity grew. And as a reasonable thinking person today, it is a virtual impossibility for me to ever believe in a religion where your God's plan was to force Christianity on the world through violence and terror, because that's how he did it in his day. He threatened the shit out of the Israelites in order to force them into Judaism. So y'all have a great day. And remember always, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.